Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Waddell, and I'd like to take a few moments to talk to you about the U.S. Arizona government final exam. That's right, the final exam is here. So let's spend some time and let's take a look at the final exam, what's going to be on the final exam, what the final exam is going to look like, what you need to do, how you can prepare and get ready for the final exam. So as you can see right here, we're going to talk about a couple things. We're going to talk about formatting. There's formatting. We're going to talk about the units. Then we're going to talk about the review guides that are on there. Look at that. I can point and talk. That's so cool. But anyway, let's go through exactly what, because it seems overwhelming. We've had a whole semester of government, and now I just say, all right, we're going to whittle it all down to one test. So let's make sure we understand what this test is going to look like, and let's get our focus a little more on what we should be focusing in on, and hopefully everything will turn out for the best. So let's take a look right here. First at the format. It is stimulus-based. That means that I'm going to give you either a reading passage, a chart, a graph, a political cartoon. Oh, wait. I'm going to give you one of all of those. So what's going to happen is you're going to have 14 different stimulus with anywhere from 2 to 3 questions per stimulus. All right. So you have a reading passage. Then there'll be 3 questions about the reading passage. You'll have a chart. There can be up to 3 questions on the chart. Same thing for a graph. Same thing for a political cartoon. Okay. As I said, there's always 2 to 3 questions per every stimulus. Now, here's one thing you want to be thinking about when you answer these stimulus questions. The very first question relates directly to the stimulus. That means you don't need to know anything else. The answer is going to be right there for you. All right. If it's a chart, the question might say, in what year did this happen? And your answer would be the year, because you can just do it right from the chart. You don't need to know anything else. You don't need to read anything else. It's right there for you. The second question is, I'm using some of the information here, but I want you to tell me a little bit more. Show me what you know about this. All right. So if there's a question about Article 1 of the Constitution, obviously that deals with Congress. So they want you're going to find some stuff about Congress, but you're going to have to go a little bit deeper than what's in the passage. The passage will get you halfway there. You need to take it the rest of the way. All right. Okay. So that's usually the second question. The third question is going to be something about that stimulus. So if it was, again, Article 1, that's about Congress, that means the third question is going to be something about Congress, but it's not going to necessarily be related to the passage. It's going to be something else, using that concept that they're talking about in a bigger picture. Maybe we're looking at, the ability to raise taxes. So it's going to be a question about Congress and taxes. It's not really related to what the passage is, but it's in the passage. Does that make sense? I hope it does. But those are how the questions are structured. So be thinking about that as you go through this. First question, always related right back to the stimulus. Second question, half stimulus based, other half is your knowledge. The third one is usually just the concept that's presented in the stimulus. So, all right, so that takes care of that. So now we know the format. We have an idea of what we're getting ourselves into. So let's go on. And now let's talk about the units real quick. And I don't want to make this video too long because I know you guys got things to do. And granted, looking at all this is super cool and my voice is super awesome. But let's go through this. So Unit 2, or not Unit 2. Well, Unit 2 is in here. Unit 1 and 2. And we did those the first 9 weeks. That is the Constitution and federalism. All right. And some of the things you should be thinking about in federalism are powers. Who has power? Is it the states? Is it the federal government? And usually one of the best ways to do that was the Venn diagram. It's in your book. You can type in federalism powers and you'll see 1,000 Venn diagrams on Google. And you can use any one of them and they will all fit perfectly. So just go through that and take a look at that. So that's the one thing. We've also have something about some documents that we need to look at here in this first unit. Primarily the Constitution. You should know that kind of goes into Unit 2, our three branches of government. Article 1, the Congress. Article 2, the President. Article 3, the judiciary branch. So I take a quick look at those again. They're not terribly long. Again, those are easy to find anywhere. Okay. Another document that we looked at was the Declaration of Independence. So definitely take a look at the Declaration of Independence. Okay. And you want to make sure you understand what's happening there. When you talk about the three branches of government, you want a big thing that we did talk about and we've looked at, and you can find these charts everywhere, are checks and balances. Who does what? That's kind of the big key. We know what powers everybody has, but how do they check each other? What does this look like? How are they going to be able to do this? And then we're going to look again at Articles 1, 2, and 3 of the Constitution and how they interpret checks and balances. What are some powers that each branch has specifically? So definitely be taking a look at the checks and balances. I can't stress that part enough. I have one more sheet I thought about Unit 2 that I wanted you to know. Checks and balances, we have that. That's the wrong unit. That's not it. And there it is. Oh, I found it. So I want to make sure you guys understand this so we can keep focused on what we need to look at. And the last one is how a bill becomes a law. How does this happen? Definitely take a look at that. But you have to look at all the parts to it. Don't just focus in on what Congress can do. Well, I got a little closer, didn't I? I'll back up a little bit. Take a look at what the president has the power to do. What can the courts do with a law? So when we talk about these things, you're looking at all three branches at once, not just one particular branch. How do they all interact? That's why I said the checks and balances is a good place to start. Look at that. Separation of powers, look at that. How a bill becomes a law, look at that. But then you got to look at all three parts. What does everybody do when a bill becomes a law? So you definitely want that. Okay, perfect. So let's move on. Let's look at units 3 and 4. All right, unit 3 was kind of a big one. Political parties, interest groups, mass media. Then we wrap everything up with civil rights and civil liberties. So let's take a look at unit 3. Again, these are all going to be charts and graphs on this one as I'm looking through it. A lot of charts and graphs because they lend themselves to charts and graphs really well. Like media, how do you get your politics? Through what form of media? That's a good one to be thinking about. Political parties, remember we talked about this. Planks, remember planks? Those were individualized beliefs of the party, and we put the planks together. We built a platform. So I may give you some planks and then ask you some questions about them and how the two parties differ. So you definitely want to take a look at that. And the two parties are going to be the Democrats and Republicans. So I would go back and take a look at their platforms real quick, especially looking at welfare, taxes, poverty. So definitely go take a look at those in the party platforms, and you'll have a really good idea of what they're trying to get at through that. What else? We talked about that. That's about it for Unit 3. It's pretty short. There's only a couple of questions on that. Then we wrap everything up with Unit 4, and that's civil liberties and civil rights. And this is primarily going to be, and I think we all get it, it's going to be court cases. There's going to be we just wrap up with court cases. Court case, court case, court case, and also the Bill of Rights. So we definitely want to take a look at the Bill of Rights. We want to look at the First Amendment, the Sixth Amendment, the 14th Amendment in particular. So definitely focus in on those three amendments, and you should do okay. All right. Remember Gideon versus Wainwright. I showed you the video on Gideon versus Wainwright, and I said there was a few questions about Gideon versus Wainwright and the incorporation doctrine. And I'm looking at it right now, and guess what? There's some questions about Gideon versus Wainwright and the incorporation doctrine. So you definitely want to take a look at those. And then a couple other cases to think about and just look at and ponder. One, of course, is Brown versus the board. I can't imagine a government test without a question about Brown versus the board. It's that important and that monumental in what it's done for society. So definitely take a look at that. Take a look at Tinker versus Des Moines. That definitely does something with, students' rights, the First Amendment. Engel Vital is a good one to look at. So I'm giving you 4 court cases. I'm giving you Brown versus the board, Engel versus Vital, Tinker versus Des Moines, and Gideon versus Wainwright. So those are our court cases, and that wraps up Unit 4, our civil liberties and civil rights. And the last thing I want to talk to you about is your review guides. There's several review guides. First, I would take a look at your notes. You'd be surprised. Your notes are going to have a lot of these things in there. I would take a look at the textbook, go through this, jot down the notes that I've told you about, and then look at the textbook. And then look at the 2 review guides that I've posted at mrwaddell.com. They will definitely help you as well. So take a look at those. And if you do all that, you'll be set. And you should be good to go with the U.S. Arizona government final exam. Again, if you have any questions, let me know, and I will certainly help you. So again, take care, thanks, and start studying. Stop watching videos. Go study.